My son showed up at 6 a.m. with a doctor. "Dad, you've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I'll take care of everything." He showed me a fake medical report. What I did next will shock everyone. My name is Anthony Celeste, 78 years well lived, retired after 42 years as an accountant at the same company in Rochester, a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. I was married for 51 years to my Louise, may God rest her soul, and we raised 3 children, Mark, Claudia, and Roger, the youngest. I still live in the same house that I built brick by brick in the Meadowbrook neighborhood, where everybody knows me as Tony the accountant. I've always been respected for my honesty and my sharp eye for numbers. Life was never easy. I worked since I was 14, when my father took me to his company, saying a man had to learn to earn his bread early. I studied in the mornings and worked in the afternoons, doing what they now call an apprenticeship. But back then I was just a kid trying to make ends meet. I graduated in accounting by studying at night while already working during the day. I saved penny by penny to buy my plot of land, then a few more years saving to build the house, always with planning, everything noted in my notebooks. I gave quality education to my children, college for all, weddings, helped to buy their first houses, all with much sweat, but with joy in my heart. Before continuing this story, I'd like to thank the Grandpa's Voice channel for the opportunity to share my story. And I ask you who are watching, please subscribe to the channel, leave your like, comment where you're watching from, and what time it is there. Every day there's a new story here. Stories like mine of simple people who work their whole lives and when they think they're going to rest, discover that life still holds some surprises, some sweet, others bitter, like bitter melon. And it was precisely when I thought I had seen everything in this life that I discovered. Sometimes, betrayal comes from whom you least expect, from whom you help the most to grow, from whom you would give your own life to protect. I was born in Dansville, a small town about 30 miles from Rochester in 1947. My parents were small farmers, simple people who barely knew how to sign their names, but who had a sense of honor you don't find in many college graduates these days. We were 5 siblings, and the work on the farm began before sunrise. We planted a bit of everything, corn, beans, potatoes. We also had some dairy cows and free-range chickens. It wasn't much, but it was enough to live on. My father, Mr. Celeste, was strict. He always said that a man who doesn't work doesn't eat, and it was with that lesson in mind that I left home at 14 to live with an uncle in Rochester and start working. At first I was an office boy at Progress Accounting, taking documents here and there, going to the bank, those kinds of things. The owner, Mr. Juvenal, saw that I had a knack for numbers and started teaching me. I stayed after hours without getting overtime, just to learn. By 18, I was already doing the accounting for small businesses. By 22, I was a certified accountant and had a client portfolio who trusted me. The routine was tough. I woke up at 5:30, caught the bus at 6:15, arrived at the office at 7, worked until noon, had a quick lunch at a diner near work, and went back to my desk until 6 p.m. Then I still did the private accounting jobs I could get. In the beginning, I worked on a drawing board with reams of paper, doing all calculations by hand or with a mechanical calculator. When computers arrived, I was already in my 40s, but I learned to use those difficult programs, Lotus 123, then Excel, always updating myself, always studying. It was in a tax legislation update course that I met my Louise. She worked as a secretary at a furniture manufacturer and was there to learn about invoicing. That lady in a pencil skirt, neat hair, and red lipstick caught my attention from day one. During the break, I offered her a coffee and started a conversation. She was reserved but polite. It took 3 weeks of the course and another month of persistence for her to agree to go out with me. Our first date was on a Sunday, a picnic at the city park. I brought a basket with sandwiches, soda, and a cornbread that I asked my aunt to make. She loved the simplicity. 2 years later, we were married. Married life brought more responsibilities. We lived in a small rented apartment, small but well located. When Mark was born in 1975, we had already bought a plot of land and started saving to build. Claudia came in 1977 and accelerated our plans. We built the house little by little, first 2 rooms, where we squeezed in for almost a year, Then 2 more rooms. When Roger was born in 1982, the house was almost finished, with 3 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, and a large backyard where I planted some fruit trees. The sacrifices for the children were many. Louise stopped working to take care of the kids, so the income was just mine. I gave up buying a new car to pay for private school for all 3. We never took vacations at hotels. Our fun was visiting relatives in the countryside or spending a weekend at a friend's cabin. I worked 2 jobs, during the day at Great Lakes Textiles as chief accountant, and at night and on weekends doing accounting for small businesses. At the end of the month, I barely slept, closing balances and preparing tax forms, but it was worth it to see the children growing up well, studying, having opportunities I didn't have. Our assets were built like this, brick by brick. After our own house, I bought a larger lot in a neighborhood that was just starting, Willow Creek. It was almost rural at the time, but with the city's growth, it appreciated greatly. There, with much sweat, I built 3 houses to rent. Every penny that came in from rent, I saved in my account. I didn't spend on frivolities. When I retired at 65, I had the house where I live, the 3 rental houses, a small farm in Dansville that I inherited from my parents and shared with my siblings, and a good reserve in my savings account. I wasn't rich, but I had security to live with dignity and still help my children when they needed it. The first signs of change began after Louise passed away 3 years ago. It was a fulminant cancer. In less than 6 months, she was gone. I was lost, I confess. 51 years together is too much time to get used to living alone. Suddenly the children, already married with their own lives, started appearing more. Especially Roger, the youngest. He was always the most problematic one. He dropped out of college halfway through, tried various jobs without settling in any, got divorced twice, and was always involved in some revolutionary business that never worked out. Even so, I always helped him. I paid debts, made down payments on apartments, bought a car when his was repossessed by the bank. He's my son, right? You can't watch them struggle. After Louise's passing, Roger started visiting me almost daily. At first I thought it was concern, a son's affection, but I soon realized there was something more. He asked a lot about the rentals, about my savings, about the farm in Dansville. He suggested that I sell everything and move to a very peaceful retirement community that a friend of his managed. He said I was too old to take care of so many properties, that it was better to simplify life. I smiled and changed the subject, but I was already on alert. The antecedents of the problem began to become clearer in the last year. Roger appeared more and more at my house, always with a different excuse. I came to see if you need anything, Dad. I brought some pastries that Sandra made. Sandra was his 3rd wife, a nice girl, but one I barely knew. He met her in a real estate sales course he took after the cell phone store he opened closed its doors in less than a year. I noticed that the visits always had a pattern. First, he would come alone, be nice to me, make lunch, watch football with me. Then, when it was time to leave, he would always drop something like, "Dad, have you thought about what we discussed about selling those houses in Willow Creek? It's giving you too much trouble to manage all this alone." Or, "That retirement community I told you about has 24-hour nurses, and you'd make friends with people your age." I always gave the same answer. "Son, I'm very good here in my house." The rental houses are well rented. Paul from the real estate agency takes care of everything for me. He just brings me the money at the end of the month, and I don't need any nurse. Thank God I have health to spare. He would pretend, but I could see the disappointment. Once I heard him talking on the phone in the backyard, thinking I couldn't hear. No, I still haven't convinced him. He's stubborn as a mule. I've tried everything. We'll have to think of another plan. That's when I really started to worry. I commented with my daughter Claudia, but she minimized it. "Dad, Roger has always been a bit scatterbrained. It must just be worry about you." Mark, my oldest son, lived in Grand Rapids and came to visit me every 2 months. When I commented with him, he was more direct. "Roger always wanted things the easy way, Dad, but to go as far as trying to scam his own father? I don't think so, right?" I wanted to believe my other children, but my old accountant's instinct, used to noticing when numbers didn't add up, told me something was wrong. So I decided to be more alert. I began to keep important documents in the safe I had installed years ago behind a picture in my bedroom. These were the house deeds, bank statements, insurance policies, everything organized, as I've done my whole life. I also started going downtown more often, talking with old colleagues, keeping my mind active. I did crossword puzzles daily and even started taking a computer course at the Seniors Association. I wanted to make it clear to anyone that my mind was excellent. The main event of the betrayal happened on a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. It was early April. I had just turned 78. The week before, Roger had shown up with a different gift, a digital blood pressure monitor. "Dad, it's for you to measure your pressure every day and write it down in a notebook. At your age, you have to keep track." I found it strange because I never had blood pressure problems, but I accepted the gift. That Tuesday at 6 a.m. I was awakened by loud knocks on the door. It was still dark outside. I got up a bit dizzy, put on my robe, and went to answer. It was Roger with a man in a white coat, whom I had never seen before. "Dad, this is Dr. Richard. He's a geriatrician and neurologist. I need to talk to you about something serious." I found that hour strange, that visit without warning, but I let the two in and offered coffee, which they refused. We sat in the living room and Roger began to speak in a voice that seemed rehearsed. "Dad, we're very worried about you. Doctor." Richard is an Alzheimer's specialist, and I've been telling him about some behaviors I've noticed in you lately. I was paralyzed. "What behaviors, son?" "You've been forgetting a lot of things, Dad. Last week you forgot to turn off the gas. Another day, you didn't remember Claudia's birthday and you've been leaving bills unpaid." That was completely false. I never forgot to turn off the gas in my life. Claudia's birthday was only the next month. And as for the bills, I paid everything religiously on time with the receipts organized in a folder. The so-called doctor then opened a folder and took out some papers. "Mr. Anthony, we did some preliminary tests based on samples your son brought us and questionnaires answered by the family. Unfortunately, the results indicate the initial stages of Alzheimer's. Nothing too serious yet, but we need to start treatment and, most importantly, reorganize your life to ensure your safety." I took the papers with trembling hands. There were graphs, medical terms, everything looking very official at first glance. But I, who had spent my entire life dealing with documents, soon noticed inconsistencies. The hospital letterhead seemed strange. The format didn't follow the pattern I knew of medical reports, and there were typing errors that no official document would have. The strangest thing, however, was the so-called doctor. Something about him didn't seem right. The coat too white and starched, as if it had never been used, hands without the marks of someone who works in a hospital, and, most importantly, the badge hanging on the pocket that he seemed to have forgotten to remove. "Doctor, you forgot to remove your car salesman badge," I said, pointing to the badge where it clearly read, "Richard Mendez, Sales Consultant, Silver Automobiles." The silence that followed was deafening. The man turned as red as a beet and tried to hide the badge. Roger began to stutter. "Dad, what's this story? Are you seeing things?" I stood up trembling, not from fear, but from anger. "What paperwork is this, Roger? Who is this man? What are you trying to do to me?" The doctor tried to recompose himself. "Mr. Anthony, this only proves how confused you are. This is an old badge. I worked at a dealership before graduating in medicine." "Oh, really? And why does the badge have this year's expiration date? And why does it have a fresh ink stain in the corner? You didn't even wait for it to dry properly." Roger, seeing that the plan was falling apart, changed tactics. "Dad, we just want what's best for you. You're old. You need care. These houses, this money, it's all giving you trouble. If you give me power of attorney, I'll take care of everything, sell the properties, and you can go to a peaceful place." It was like taking a punch to the stomach. My own son, my youngest, the one I helped the most in life, was there with a straight face, trying to have me committed and take my assets. "Get out of my house now," I shouted with a strength I didn't know I had. "Get out before I call the police." The fake doctor didn't need a second invitation and was already at the door. Roger still tried. "Dad, you're having an episode. This only proves that—" "Out!" I roared, picking up the phone. "I'm going to call Sheriff Souza right now. He was my client for 20 years. Let's see what he thinks of this forged Alzheimer's story." My initial reaction after they left was one of profound shock. I sat in my favorite armchair, the leather one that Louise gave me as a gift when I retired, and stared into space. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing. How could my own son do this to me? The boy I held in my arms, whom I taught to ride a bicycle, whose hand I held when he got stitches after falling from the backyard tree. I cried like I hadn't since Louise's funeral. A dry cry, an old man's cry, but loaded with a pain that seemed endless. I thought about calling my other children, but something held me back. What if they were involved too? What if Roger wasn't acting alone? I spent the rest of that day in a state of torpor between anger and sadness. I couldn't eat, couldn't watch TV. I just sat there, trying to understand how we had reached that point. The next day, I received a call from Roger. "Dad, I'm sorry about the misunderstanding yesterday. That guy wasn't really a doctor. He was a friend who was helping me convince you to get checked out. It's just that you're so stubborn and never go to the doctor. I'm just worried, Dad." His audacity was unbelievable. After being caught red-handed, he was still trying to give a flimsy excuse. I responded coldly, "Roger, don't take me for a fool. I know exactly what you tried to do. I don't want to talk about this right now. I need some time." I hung up before he could answer. The additional discoveries that worsened the situation came in the following days. First, the unexpected visit from Sandra, Roger's wife. She came alone with eyes red from crying. "Mr. Anthony, I came to apologize. I didn't know everything, I swear. Roger told me you were really having memory problems, that it was to save you from making a mistake. I only discovered the truth yesterday, when I heard him talking to a lawyer about how to get your guardianship, even without a real diagnosis." She seemed sincere, and told me even worse things. Roger was full of debts, had taken out loans from loan sharks to invest in cryptocurrency and lost everything. He was being pressured and saw my assets as the solution to his problems. He's already consulted 3 real doctors, but they all said you don't have anything. That's why he invented this fake doctor plan. If he got your guardianship, he was going to sell everything and disappear with the money. I think there wouldn't be anything left for me either. Sandra cried a lot and said she was thinking about separating. I consoled her, saying she wasn't to blame, that she had also been deceived. After she left, I decided to investigate more. I called Mark, my oldest son, but didn't tell him anything yet. I just asked if he had noticed anything strange in Roger's behavior. His answer alarmed me even more. "To tell the truth, Dad, he called me last week asking if I would agree to sell the Dansville farm. He said you wanted to get rid of everything to live more peacefully. I found it strange, because you always said that piece of land was the last memory of Grandpa Celeste." Claudia, when I approached her with the same disguised question, gave me another worrying piece of information. Roger came to my house last month with papers for me to sign. He said it was a petition for the neighborhood to improve street lighting. I signed without reading carefully. "I was in a hurry to pick up the kids from school. Now you've got me worried, Dad." I asked her to look for a copy of that document if she had one. 2 days later, she called me in a panic. "Dad, it wasn't any petition. It was a statement saying that I had witnessed episodes of mental confusion and erratic behavior on your part. He deceived me. It was at that moment that I made my decision. I couldn't stay still anymore, just reacting to the blows. I needed to act, and fast." My son was determined to declare me incapable and take everything I had built with so much sweat. But he had made a serious mistake, underestimating an old accountant who spent his life dealing with people trying to bend the rules. That night, I sat at my desk and began to outline a plan. Roger thought I was a defenseless old man, easy to manipulate. He would discover that he had messed with the wrong person. If it was war he wanted, war he would get. But I would play by my own rules, those I learned in decades of dealing with countless contracts and, mainly, with human nature. The discovery of my trump card happened when I was reorganizing my documents in the safe behind the picture. Among old papers, I found the will that Louise and I had made 10 years before. In it, we included a clause that had gone unnoticed until then. Any heir who tried to declare one of the testators incapable, without reputable medical proof, would automatically lose their share in the inheritance. At the time, we did this thinking of protecting each other. in case any child tried to take control of the assets while we were still alive. Louise was always a cautious woman. "Anthony," she would say, "a child is a child, but money is too big a temptation for some people." I thought she was exaggerating, but now I saw how right she was. But the will alone wouldn't be enough. I needed concrete evidence of the attempted scam. That's when I remembered my friend Gerald, owner of an electronics store. The next day I went there. "Gerald, I need a very small camera, one of those you can hide, and that records with good quality." He looked at me curiously but didn't ask questions. He came back from the back of the store with a small box. "This one is the size of a button. It has an 8-hour continuous recording battery and comes with a 128GB memory card. Will that do?" I installed the camera inside the living room lamp, strategically positioned to capture the whole area of the coffee table. I also bought a voice recorder that I hid under the same table. Now I just had to wait for Roger to show up again, which I was sure would happen soon. My other move was to consult Dr. Helen, a lawyer specialized in elder law, whom I knew through the Seniors Association. Without telling too many details yet, I asked about fraudulent guardianship attempts. "Mr. Anthony, that's a crime. Forging medical reports is forgery, and if it's your own son trying this, it also constitutes elder abuse with more severe penalties. But I need concrete evidence to act. And if I get that evidence, doctor, recordings, for example." She explained to me that recordings made in my own house for my defense were perfectly legal and accepted as evidence. I left her office with a clearer plan and an important ally. The search for support continued with my other children. I decided to tell everything to Mark and Claudia. At first, they were incredulous, but when I showed them the false statement that Roger had made Claudia sign and told them about the fake doctor, it hit them. "My God, Dad, I never imagined Roger would go this far," said Mark, running his hands through his graying hair in a gesture of despair. "He was always problematic, but to want to declare his own father incapable—" Claudia couldn't finish the sentence, choked by tears. "I don't want you to confront him yet," I instructed. "Let him think everything is normal. I need to catch him red-handed." I also went to my trusted doctor, Dr. Maurice, who had been following me for more than 20 years. I asked for a complete checkup, including neurological evaluation. "Mr. Anthony, you have the health of a 60-year-old. Controlled blood pressure, strong heart, and your mind? Your mind is better than mine. You told me details of consultations from 10 years ago that I didn't even remember. I left there with a medical report, attesting to my full mental and physical capacity. Another piece in my chess game against Roger. The execution of the justice plan began when, as expected, Roger showed up at my house 3 days later, alone. This time he came with a different approach. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot. I think I really exaggerated. You're great, it was just a son's concern. Let's forget that story, okay?" I played my best role as a confused and shaken old man. "I don't know, son. That really scared me. And what if I really do have a problem? Maybe it's better I organize things while I'm still lucid." I saw his eyes shine. It was like a shark smelling blood. "Good that you're thinking that way, Dad. It's the most prudent thing to do. Want me to help you organize things?" "Maybe, son. I was thinking about giving you power of attorney to take care of the houses, the money in case I get worse." He could barely hide his satisfaction. "Great idea, Dad. I can bring a lawyer friend of mine tomorrow itself." "No need, son. I have Mr. Sergio, who has been handling my documents for years. Shall we schedule with him on Friday? Then I'll show you where I keep the important documents, the deeds, the bank statements." He agreed right away. On Friday, he arrived punctually at 10 as agreed. Mr. Sergio, who was actually a retired actor, a friend of Mark's, was also there, perfectly playing the role of a lawyer. With the cameras and recorders on, I led Roger to my office and began showing the documents, while Mr. Sergio took notes. "This is the deed to the house where I live. This one is for the 3 houses in Willow Creek, and this is for the farm in Dansville." Roger took each document with almost reverential care. "And where do you keep the money, Dad?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "I have 2 accounts, one at Chase with about $80,000 and another at Bank of America with almost $200,000. They're my life savings." He almost choked upon hearing the amounts. "And you really want to give me power of attorney to take care of all this?" "Yes, son. After all, you yourself said I might have Alzheimer's, right? Better safe than sorry." That's when he fell into the trap. "That's true, Dad." "You're getting very forgetful. The other day you forgot where you had put your car keys and those medicines you stopped taking. That's dangerous." "What medicines, son? I don't take any medicine." "See, you forgot that you've been taking blood pressure medicine for years." I had never taken blood pressure medicine. It was another lie to try to prove my supposed incapacity. Mr. Sergio continued to take notes, while I induced Roger to say more and more. He mentioned other invented episodes, talked about the fake doctor's diagnosis, and made his plan clear. "After you sign the power of attorney, I'll take care of everything. I'll sell the houses because they're too much trouble and invest the money. You'll go to that retirement home I told you about. It will be much better." When I thought I already had enough evidence, I gave the signal to Mr. Sergio. "Well, I think I understood everything," he said, closing the folder. "Mr. Anthony, based on what I've seen here today as your lawyer, I don't recommend that you sign any power of attorney. In fact, as a retired court officer, I am legally obligated to inform you that I have witnessed a clear attempt to induce an incapable person, even knowing that you are not incapable." Roger's face completely changed from satisfied to terrified in seconds. "What's this? What story is this? I thought you were a lawyer." That's when the office door opened, and in came Dr. Helen, my real lawyer, Mark, Claudia, and 2 police officers. "Roger Celeste," said one of the officers, "we have a warrant to seize your electronic devices and documents related to an investigation of attempted elder abuse fraud." The immediate consequences for Roger were devastating. He was taken to give a statement, and although he was released the same day for being a first-time offender, a criminal case was opened. Dr. Helen took care of filing a detailed police report, attaching all the evidence we had collected: the recordings, the fake medical report, the fraudulent statement that Claudia had signed without knowing, and the testimony of the fake doctor who, cornered, confessed everything in exchange for a plea deal. We also registered a restraining order, preventing Roger from approaching me or my house. It was the most painful part of the whole process. I never imagined that I would have to legally protect myself from my own son. "Dad, can he go to jail?" asked Claudia with teary eyes after everything happened. "He can, sweetheart. The crimes he committed carry up to 5 years in prison, but it will depend on the judge and how the process unfolds." The reactions of the family and those involved were diverse. Sandra, Roger's wife, filed for divorce the same week. "I can't stay married to someone capable of doing this to their own father," she told me, during a quick visit to pick up some things she had left at my house. Mark, always more practical, helped reorganize my finances and reinforce the house's security. We installed cameras, changed the locks, and he taught me how to use an app on my phone that allowed me to monitor bank accounts in real time. Claudia was devastated by everything. As the middle child, she always tried to keep peace in the family. "How are we going to continue being a family after this, Dad?" she asked me one night, crying in my kitchen while we prepared tea. "Sweetheart, family is complicated," I answered, thinking carefully. "Roger made very wrong choices, but he's still my son. I can't erase that from my heart, but I also can't pretend nothing happened." The neighbors, many of whom had known me for decades, were shocked when the story spread. Mr. Juvenile from the corner bakery approached me one morning. "Mr. Anthony, is it true that Roger tried to forcibly commit you?" I confirmed without going into details, and he shook his head indignantly. "My father-in-law went through something similar. Greed does terrible things to people. In the neighborhood, I became a kind of example of resistance. Other seniors began to seek me out for advice on how to protect themselves. This gave me a new purpose, a way to transform that painful experience into something useful for others. 2 years have passed since that fateful morning when my son tried to convince me I had Alzheimer's. A lot has changed in my life, and today I find myself sitting on my porch watching the sunset with different eyes, wiser ones perhaps, certainly more cautious ones. Reflecting on what happened, I realized that Roger's betrayal wasn't something that happened overnight. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. As a father, we always tend to see the best in our children, to forgive their faults, to believe they will change, improve. It's love that blinds us, that makes us ignore the obvious. That boy who once held my hand to cross the street grew up and made his choices. He walked his path, and unfortunately that path led him away from the values I tried to teach him. Sometimes I wonder where I went wrong. Was I too strict, or perhaps too permissive? Did I work so hard to provide material comfort that I forgot to teach the value of effort and honest work? Louise always said Roger was too spoiled, that he needed more boundaries. "Anthony, this boy needs to learn that life doesn't give anything for free," she would repeat. Maybe she was right, but I also know that I can't carry all the blame. Everyone makes their own choices in life. Mark and Claudia had the same upbringing and became honest, hard-working people who built their lives with dignity. Roger simply chose the easier path, even if it meant harming his own father. The lawsuit against him is still ongoing. The lawyers say it could take another year or two to get a final sentence. Dr. Helen assured me that the evidence is overwhelming and that he will hardly escape a conviction, even if it's an alternative sentence. I confess that I have conflicting feelings about this. As a father, I don't want to see my son in jail, but as a citizen, I know that actions have consequences and that justice needs to be done. In the first months after what happened, Roger tried to contact me several times, leaving messages, asking intermediaries to talk to me. He said he was sorry, that it had been a moment of desperation because of the debts. I maintained the restraining order and didn't respond to any contact attempt. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too painful. After about 6 months, I received a handwritten letter from him. Unlike the other attempts, this one seemed sincere. He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't ask for money. He just acknowledged the harm he had done and said he was seeking psychological help to understand why he had reached that point. I kept the letter, but still didn't feel ready to respond. The new family arrangement that was established after all this was something I never imagined for my old age. Mark, who lived in Grand Rapids, decided to transfer back to Rochester. He bought a house just 2 blocks from mine. "Dad, the company is letting me work remotely most of the time. I only need to go to Grand Rapids once a month for meetings." I know it was a sacrifice for him, who had an established life there, but his presence nearby has been a great comfort. Claudia continues to live in the same neighborhood with her husband and 2 teenage children. She comes to have lunch with me at least twice a week, and Sundays are a tradition, barbecue in my backyard with the whole family gathered. My grandchildren, Gabriel, 17, and Julia, 15, are my joy. Intelligent, well-mannered, studious. Gabriel already says he wants to be an accountant like his grandfather, which fills me with pride. Sandra, Roger's ex-wife, surprisingly maintained contact. She visits me from time to time, brings a cake or a pie she made, and we talk about life. A good-hearted girl who was also a victim of Roger's lies. She's dating a physical education teacher, a hard-working young man who treats her with respect. I'm happy for her. The neighbors and friends became even more present in my life. Mr. Juvenal from the bakery insists on sending an employee to deliver fresh bread to my door every morning. Mrs. Zulmira, a retired teacher who lives next door, always invites me for afternoon coffee. On Wednesdays, we form a small group of seniors from the neighborhood who meet weekly to play dominoes and chat. These are small pleasures that give meaning to my days. As for my assets, I decided to make some changes. I sold one of the houses in Willow Creek and used the money to completely renovate the house where I live, installing handrails, adapting the bathroom with support bars, replacing the stairs with a ramp. Not because I'm incapacitated, thank God I'm still firm and strong, but because it's better to prevent. With another part of the money, I created a fund for my grandchildren's college and invested the rest in a long-term investment that can only be accessed when they turn 25. I learned in the worst possible way that money in the hands of someone who isn't prepared to manage it can do more harm than good. My current life has a tranquility I didn't know before. I wake up early, as I've always done. I drink my black coffee, looking at the garden I take such good care of. The roses that Louise planted continue to bloom every year, as if she were still here caring for them. 3 times a week I go to the Seniors Association, where I now give voluntary classes on financial education to other seniors. I teach how to organize finances, how to protect themselves from scams, how to ensure their assets are preserved. It's a way to transform my painful experience into something useful for others. In the afternoons, I usually read or do crossword puzzles on the porch. Once a week, I go to the movies with a group of friends the same age. We especially like national films and documentaries. Fridays are market days and I never miss it. I like to personally choose the fruits and vegetables, to talk with the vendors who have known me for decades, to feel the smells and colors of life happening around me. The peace I achieved didn't come easy. In the first months after what happened, I had nights of insomnia, nightmares, moments of deep sadness. I even consulted a psychologist, Dr. Martha, who helped me process the trauma of betrayal. Mr. Anthony, you have every right to feel anger, sadness, disappointment. These are natural feelings given what you've experienced. The important thing is not to let these feelings consume you. And that's what I tried to do. Day after day, I chose not to let myself be embittered by the betrayal. I chose to focus on the children who truly love me, on the grandchildren who are my pride, on the friends who are by my side. I chose to continue cultivating my garden, literally and figuratively. 6 months ago, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I replied to Roger's letter. It wasn't easy to write those words, but I felt it was necessary for both him and me. Son, I wrote, what you did hurt me deeply and broke the trust that existed between us. I can't pretend nothing happened, but I also can't deny that you are my son, blood of my blood. Your mother, wherever she is, would want me to find in myself the strength to, if not completely forgive, at least not carry this grudge to the grave. I am willing to try a rapprochement, as long as it's based on truth and mutual respect. It will be a slow process and will need a lot of effort on your part to rebuild what was broken. If you're willing to try, we can start with a coffee in a public place, with the presence of your brother or sister. He responded the next day, accepting all conditions. We met at a downtown cafe with Mark present. It was a difficult meeting, with long, awkward silences, but it was a beginning. Since then, we have been meeting once a month, always in a public place, always with a sibling present. He's working as a salesman in a building materials store, paying his debts little by little, doing therapy regularly. I don't know if we'll ever have the relationship we had before, but I'm willing to give reconciliation a chance, without naivety and without rush. The lessons I took from this whole experience are many. I learned that we should be attentive to the signs, that love is not synonymous with blindness, that trusting is good but verifying is better. I learned that old age doesn't mean fragility, that we still have the strength to fight for our rights, to defend ourselves from injustices, to start over when necessary. I also learned that justice doesn't always come in the way we expect. Roger is paying for what he did, not only legally but with the weight of conscience, with the loss of people's trust, with the difficulty of rebuilding his life. Sometimes that's the harshest punishment. But the most important lesson I take with me is that it's never too late to start over. At 80 years old, I discovered new purposes, new friendships, new ways of being in the world. Life goes on, with its joys and sorrows, with its challenges and rewards. And I continue here, living each day with the wisdom that only years can bring, and with the certainty that despite everything, it was worth it. If you've made it this far, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. And if you really followed me to the end of this journey, comment below the word vigilance. Only those who watched will understand the meaning. I thank the Grandpa's Voice channel for this opportunity to share my story. Who knows, maybe the next one will be even more similar to yours. Always remember, not every smile is sincere, not every concern is genuine, but also don't let a betrayal harden your heart to the point of not recognizing true love when it presents itself. A tight hug from this old man here, who learned that life always has something new to teach. No matter how many springs have passed,